Hey, it's not every day you see a Gen 1 Toyota Tundra parked next to a couple of Cybertrucks. This is kind of crazy. This is what Toyota enthusiasts want. They want reliability, they want simplicity, and they want affordability, all of which this Gen 1 Tundra offered. So obviously supply has far exceeded demand at this point. To paint a very clear picture, and what we never talked about on the channel before, is for every 5 vehicles that are slated to be produced here in 2025, only 4 are projected to sell. Go look and see how much these previous generation Toyota Tacomas are going for. Go look and see how much the previous generation 4Runner, the 5th generation 4Runner is going for. The previous generation Tundra with the natural aspirated V8. They are all selling for huge figures. This here is a 1794 edition. But get a load of that price tag. Just under $77,000. Absolutely absurd, huh? It's almost as if dealerships across the country are going through the 5 stages of grief right now. If you're unfamiliar, it is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Really right now, I think we're in the anger phase. Woof, $117,000. And as you'd imagine, Toyota has historically been the #1 wholesale vehicle, generally yielding the best return on investment and the best residual values. But as of late, Subaru and Honda have since taken the #1 and #2 slot. That is going to be the most realistic time to go in and get a great deal. People are going to be on their family vacations, kids are going to be fresh out of school, people are going to be putting their money toward that. So if there's a time to pounce, I'd say between May and August. Hey YouTube, Untamed here. Dealerships across the country are sitting on enormous vehicle inventory levels, and they are growing at an unprecedented rate. In today's video in particular, I'm going to explain why that is, while also explaining what happens to the unsold inventory. What happens to all these vehicles that are sitting unsold and go unsold throughout the year, a year and a half? What happens? Stick with me. Before we get into that though, I want to highlight some huge discounts that are beginning to take place across the country on desirable vehicles. Behind me, we have a whole lineup of Ford F-250 and F-350 Super Duties. Many of these, of course, are diesel pickup trucks. During the last few years, you'd be lucky to find one of these at MSRP, especially a desirable trim like an F-450 Limited. You were not going to get that at MSRP. But now, all these examples behind me are several $1,000s off. The typical example really is between $7,000 and $10,000 on these Super Duties. But let's face it, it's pretty difficult to get wildly excited about that type of discount when we're still looking at this type of starting price. Let's face it, we got to talk about it. Your trade-in right now, the used vehicle inventory, well, that's skyrocketing just as fast as new vehicle inventory. And because of that, your used vehicle is worth already 20% less as what it was 9 months ago. And that's going to continue to be the case throughout 2025. And sites like this were pretty unheard of during the last few years. This is a used example of an F-150 Raptor, a 3rd generation Raptor. These were generally flying off the shelf, new or used, and sometimes even used examples would be over their original MSRP price. Not today. Brand new examples are easily $5,000 to $8,000 off, and well, this one here with several thousand miles on it, they're gonna have to offer a huge discount from that original MSRP if they want any chance of moving it. Truly feel bad for any dealership trying to sell a used Jeep Wrangler or a used Jeep Gladiator. They are just not selling new. So why in the world would the used example sell unless they're practically giving them away? Yeah, they have a brand new days on lot time of over 460 days right now. The new examples are just sitting, collecting dust with huge discounts applied and incentivized interest rates. So these ones here, used examples, well, they're gonna be here for a while collecting snow. As you'd imagine, Toyota has historically been the #1 wholesale vehicle, generally yielding the best return on investment and the best residual values. But as of late, Subaru and Honda have since taken the #1 and #2 slot. Toyotas, well, the new generations of them are inspiring a whole lot of confidence, and between that and their huge price hikes of MSRPs, people are no longer paying that great residual for them. Subarus, on the other hand, they only saw a 28% MSRP price hike since 2019. And when you compare that with the national average of 42% across all vehicle manufacturers, well, these are beginning to feel like a bargain. So obviously supply has far exceeded demand at this point. To paint a very clear picture, and what we never talked about on the channel before, is for every 5 vehicles that are slated to be produced here in 2025, only 4 are projected to sell. And believe it or not, that is a very optimistic outlook. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that we have 4 kiddos, young kiddos, with a 5th one on the way. She just keeps having them. I'm not sure what the deal is. She's a rascal. You know the old saying of, I wanted 2, but my wife wanted 5, so we compromised and had 5? Well, that's what's happening. And you know I'm about that dad life when I begin to eyeball vehicles like this Ford Transit van because, well, if I play my cards right, that's in my future, right? please help. This is a cry for help. Over 40% of all EV owners right now are upside down on their loans. People who ended up buying an F-150 Lightning, especially right when they came out, they were likely hugely overpriced. A lot of them are coming with markups, if you recall, $10,000, $20,000 over MSRP, over that sticker price. But nowadays, and really in the last few years, couple years I should say, you're easily able to get anywhere from a $15,000 to $25,000 off discount on the F-150 Lightning in particular. We still see so many unsold units on dealership lots, 2024 and 2023 units still sitting, collecting dust, in this case, collecting snow. I hate to say it like this, but really a lot of EVs they're kind of faddish, right? I mean, they were a fad for a short, brief period of time, especially when money was cheap during the pandemic, right? You can get loans for pennies on the dollar. But now, well, there's a reason why they're sitting. These were typically a good secondary or third vehicle within a household, but never the primary, and that's abundantly clear. Perhaps one of the largest indicators of the market right now and the direction that we're heading lies with the Ford Bronco Raptor, like the one you see behind me here. These are now coming with a $20,000 to $29,000 off discount, if you can believe it. I'll throw up maybe a couple examples here. They're coming with these huge discounts. It's concerning because what does that say? It means that these came wildly overpriced right out of the gate, right? These are not worth the high $90,000 price tags that many of them come with. Sometimes they take over 100 grand. This one here isn't discounted that much just yet, but I feel like it's an easy conversation to have with them. Pull up Google, pull up a few Facebook pages, you can easily prove that these are going for that $20,000 to $29,000 off. So you tell me, would you pay $70,000 for this Ford Bronco Raptor? And it never fails, every single Ford dealership I go to, they have a huge lineup of unsold Broncos in general. These Bronco Sports are always plaguing every single dealership. I say plaguing loosely because I appreciate Ford for offering a quote-unquote affordable option, right? It's a subcompact SUV here. Many of these you can get in the mid $30,000 range. And that is a payment that a lot of Americans can actually bear, right? Anything more than that just is out of reach. Ford just secured their 48th consecutive year of having the best-selling pickup truck within the US with the F-150 here. But look at this. Every single Ford dealership just looks like this nowadays. A huge lineup of unsold units, many of these, the majority of them being 2024 units. And I would wager even as we teeter toward May, June, July, you're going to still see a lot of unsold 24s. These are coming with a $8,000 to $12,000 off discount in many cases on many trims, and still they can't move this inventory. And personally, I would not even begin to consider buying a used Ram pickup truck right now unless the starting point was at 50% of its original MSRP. That would be where I begin my negotiations. As I look at all of these Super Duties here, I can't help but notice that the majority of them truly are between $85,000 and $95,000. I hate that this has become our new norm. And so many dealerships burned buyers of these big body Broncos back in the day. I mean, just a couple years ago, as these were beginning to hit dealership lots, so many dealerships took advantage of their customers. These were generally coming with at least a $5,000 markup, but generally speaking, $10,000, $15,000 was pretty normal. So a lot of people felt pretty burned. They bought these, they don't love them, and that's why you see a huge lineup of them sitting unsold. You go to any Ford dealership, and they all look like this, a bunch of unsold Broncos. So obviously, these big body Broncos behind me aren't as expensive as that Bronco Raptor over there, but generally speaking, we still see an $8,000 to $14,000 off discount on these examples here. And well, even with those discounts, you're still seeing what you see behind me. Huge lines of them sitting unsold. What is it going to take for you to consider buying one of these? I mean, they're neat vehicles, I won't beat it up, but their price tags just feel out of reach. Now, it really wasn't that long ago where you can go to a Ford dealership and get a nicely trimmed F-150. We're talking like a limited or a platinum and still pay right around $50,000. Not anymore. You're easily spending 75 to 80 grand for that same exact trim today here in 2025. Nowadays, that $50,000 buys you one of these Ford Rangers. An XLT is going to be in the high 40s for Pete's sake. Kind of crazy, huh? And I hate to say it, but nowadays if you're going to get a affordable mid-sized pickup truck, you're going to have to settle for a Ford Maverick, like the one you see behind me here. This one is priced at $38,000 and some change. These have seen a pretty large uptick in sales because they're actually affordable to some degree. I say that with air quotes, right? People can afford these monthly payments, kind of like what we see with the Bronco Sport over there. Being in that $35,000 to $40,000 price range is within reach for a lot of people. Those monthly payments are not unbearable. And for whatever it's worth, the Ford Maverick here is beginning to give the Toyota Tacoma a run for its money. The Toyota Tacoma sold 191,000 units in 2024, and while the Ford Maverick here sold right around 130,000. So they're beginning to catch up. Another lineup of F-150s tucked on this side. Let's see this here. What do we got going on? Look at that. We got some bragging notes here. Number 1 full-size truck. Number 1 ranked compact truck, number 1 ranked performance coupe at the Mustang, and the Bronco Sport best-in-class new vehicle quality. How about that? You buying it? I can't help but wonder if there's some Ford insiders working over there at Motor Trend. It's like earning Student of the Month and you're homeschooled. This is actually the most Toyota Camrys and Toyota Priuses and Corollas that I've seen at my local dealership in a long time. These vehicles are actually selling. These vehicles are actually selling because the price tags are remotely affordable, like we talked about, being in that mid $30,000 range, but more importantly, they're fuel efficient, and this is where hybrids belong. This is where the smaller displacement hybridized platforms belong. Not so much in the Sequoia or the Land Cruiser, the 4Runner, the Tacoma, the Tundra, not so much in those platforms. Vehicles like the Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V are actually selling as well. These are just the platforms that Americans can justify. They cannot justify paying $85,000 for an F-150 or a Toyota Tundra. They can't afford that anymore. Those monthly payments of $1,500 to $1,800 per month with current interest rates, that is suffocating. It's wild to me that 1 out of 5 auto loans that were applied for throughout the last 2 quarters have been denied by banking institutions. We're not seeing any changes with interest rates. The national average being 7% still for new vehicle purchases and 11% for used vehicle purchases. Granted, to be fair, a lot of vehicle manufacturers, a lot of dealerships are pushing incentivized interest rates right now to try to move their inventory. We're talking 0% over 60 months, 1.9 over 72 months. That's becoming quite commonplace, but even still, combining that with the huge discounts, they're still not selling, and that's kind of concerning. It's kind of pathetic when the most affordable F-150 on this lot is over $50,000 still. You find that with this F-150 STX package. Kind of crazy, huh? I hinted at it already, but the Toyota Tacoma, for the first time ever, saw a huge drop in sales. With a full new redesign, generally speaking, people are pretty excited about it. This is the brand new cheese, right? And never in Toyota's history have they ever introduced a full new redesigned pickup truck or SUV and had it flop quite like this. This Mexico-built 4-banger Toyota Tacoma saw a 20% drop in sales from 2023 to 2024. Kind of crazy, huh? Can't say I'm surprised, especially when you look at the price tags here. Here we have a 2025 Toyota Tacoma TRD Off-Road. This does have the iForce Max, the hybridized option, but over $54,000. Absolutely absurd. People who are trying to buy a mid-sized pickup truck, especially a Toyota, are not interested in spending that kind of coin for it. Blows my mind. And to add insult to injury, we are seeing lesser quality with the higher price tag, right? They moved production entirely to Mexico. It's always kind of been split between San Antonio, Texas and Mexico, but now entirely out of Mexico, where they saved over 80% in labor costs alone. They pay $2.70 roughly an hour to a Mexican employee down in Mexico, whereas they pay about $16 to $18 an hour to Americans in San Antonio. So less in the quality and still hiked up that price tag 25% more over the 2023 model, which had that naturally aspirated V6 underneath the hood. So people naturally are saying no thank you. And right now, you see dealerships across the country offering $6,000 to $8,000 off MSRP, and even still, they can't sell it. I admit, I always geek out over this color on this Camry here. What do you think of it? And well, it was not that long ago where you can go buy a little bit more of a bare bones example Toyota Tundra and easily spend in the high 30s, maybe low 40s for a nicer example. But this one here, Toyota Tundra SR5, is still priced over $55,000. This one is advertised with a $5,000 off discount, but regularly you can find these, like I mentioned, 8 to 12 grand off if it means making a deal happen. And I know I pick on Toyota plenty, but I do firmly believe that this Tundra here and that new Tacoma are just huge flops. They're huge disappointments. Both of these ones here are also coming with a $5,000 to $8,000 advertised discount. Just when you thought you'd seen them all, this dealership has many more Toyota Tacomas just tucked out back, just chilling. Maybe when they make room for them up front, they can pop them up there. After looking at all these Toyota Tacomas behind me, the average price is right around $51,000 to $53,000. That isn't too far from the national average new vehicle purchase price here in 2024. Out of all vehicles, cars, trucks, SUVs, the national average was just over $48,400. So if you're going to be taking out that size of a loan, you're going to easily still spend anywhere from $700 to $900 per month over 60 or 72 months. That's kind of wild, and that can be pretty suffocating for so many people, especially when you add on the fact that insurance now costs over double of what it did just 2.5 years ago. People cannot keep up with it anymore, which is why it's no surprise that we've seen nearly a 25% uptick in the number of repossessions that have taken place within the United States just this last year. Nearly 25%. If you go talk to any tow truck company or any kind of repo man, they are backlogged. They're backlogged for months, and that has been the case throughout the last 5, 6, 7 months. And guys, don't take it from me. Do your own homework. Go look and see how much these previous generation Toyota Tacomas are going for. Go look and see how much the previous generation 4Runner, the 5th generation 4Runner is going for. The previous generation Tundra with the natural aspirated V8. They're all selling for huge figures, oftentimes at MSRP or even more than the original MSRP. It's because people are already quickly missing the reliability, simplicity, and affordability that they once had with these previous models. Kind of crazy, huh? Hey, it's not every day you see a Gen 1 Toyota Tundra parked next to a couple of Cybertrucks. This is kind of crazy. This is what Toyota enthusiasts want. They want reliability, they want simplicity, and they want affordability, all of which this Gen 1 Tundra offered. But nowadays, we've gotten wildly, overly complex, wildly overpriced, and just people are no longer buying into it. This right here isn't what the people wanted. That's what we got. Can you imagine if they still offered this 4-liter, bulletproof 4-liter naturally aspirated V6 in the new 6th generation 4Runner? Man, that thing would sell like a hotcake. The new Tundra here is a huge disappointment. The price tag really being the gleaming light of it, right? The previous generation Tundra TRD Pro with the natural aspirated V8 had a price tag of about $54,000 back in 2021, the last year that they offered it. This one here, now in 2024, 2025, it cost you over $77,000 for it. Absolutely absurd. The price tags have skyrocketed, and well, you no longer have that very reliable V8 underneath the hood. Instead you get this overly complex twin-turbo V6, hybridized V6 that has a faulty main crankshaft bearing. There's that huge safety recall out, and because of that, well, people are not buying this new Tundra with any level of confidence, and I can't say I blame them. People are already dumping that 4-cylinder Tacoma and trying to jump back to this one here that had a 3.5-liter naturally aspirated V6. You know, people also love buying vehicles with this particular 4.6-liter V8. This here is a Lexus GX460, and well, based on the Prado Land Cruiser, this here offers a ton of confidence. And there's a reason why these come with a pretty large price tag today. I mean, heck, even these Toyota Siennas are now coming with pretty good discounts. These are generally being advertised with a $3,500 to $5,000 off discount, but if you followed this market for any length of time, you know that that's pretty impressive. These were actually flying off the shelf and being sold before they even got to dealership lots. People really like these things. Let's face it, Toyota just missed the mark when it comes to the new Tundra here. Generally speaking, it is the blue-collar working class coming out to buy a Toyota Tundra. This here is a 1794 edition, but get a load of that price tag. Just under $77,000. Absolutely absurd, huh? It's almost as if dealerships across the country are going through the 5 stages of grief right now. If you're unfamiliar, it is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Really right now, I think we're in the anger phase. Initially, I think really for the first year and a half, they were in a state of denial. They figured, hey, we're gonna get an upswing, right? Or perhaps, the government will issue a bailout for us. But right now, we've teetered into the anger phase, and what that looks like is they're gonna hold firm, non-negotiable. We're set on our prices. You're gonna take it or leave it. And well, that's only gonna serve to their detriment. We wanna hit them when they're in that depression to acceptance phase. And I think that's gonna come later here in 2025 as the market continues to crash. What do you think? So let's get to the point. What happens to the vehicles that go unsold? I can confidently tell you as I walk so many of these dealerships, I am seeing the same exact vehicles week after week, month after month. They are just not moving this metal. What happens to these vehicles? I firmly believe that a true car market crash will look like 15% below invoice. So we're seeing invoice pricing across the board on many examples across various vehicle manufacturers. I think we're going to get to the point where we're 15% below that. That's the lowest that a dealership will do before they go belly up. And what I mean by belly up is they will then have to turn over their inventory back to the franchise owner, back to Ford, back to the manufacturer, and then they will reallocate the inventory to other dealerships that are perhaps doing a little bit better. And I gotta admit, when you say car market crash, a lot of people view it differently. A lot of people are hopeful that it means 50% or more off of that MSRP of that vehicle. That's just not gonna happen. I don't think that's realistic, right? Really, nowhere in history have we seen 50% off of vehicles across the board. I do firmly believe that 15% below invoice, that gets us to about that 40% off MSRP. It gets us close, but I think that is going to be the best that we will see. And really, is that enough? Is that enough for you to actually want to go out and buy these already astronomically priced vehicles? You tell me. So as we continue to see inventory levels skyrocket, the values of used vehicles and your trade-in values going down at an even higher rate, it really does beg the question, what's going to give and how soon will it happen? I firmly believe that after we get through tax season here and we start teetering toward that May, June, July to August timeframe, that's going to be the frozen middle portion of the year. It's before the end of year sales begin to hit. That is going to be the most realistic time to go in and get a great deal. People are going to be on their family vacations, kids are going to be fresh out of school, people are going to be putting their money toward that. So if there's a time to pounce, I'd say between May and August. It's important to note that although we're seeing these huge discounts and incentivized interest rates on new vehicle inventory, the wholesale market is down over 20% just over the last 9 months, meaning your used vehicle is worth 20% less than what it was just 9 months ago. So it's a double-edged sword. We're getting great deals on new vehicles, but your trade-in value, well, it's going to be pretty bleak here in 2025. And another indicator of where the market is heading is we are now seeing these brand new Cadillac Escalades coming with discounts, and they are sitting on dealership lots. Really, throughout the last few years, these were always pre-sold, and generally speaking, they came with quite the mark above it. This one here also has the full new redesigned front end. Right, so this is a new look to the Cadillac Escalade. Let me remind you of how much these things cost. Woof, $117,000. Absolutely insane. Let me remind you what trim we're looking at here. The four-wheel drive premium luxury Escalade. Woof. It is alarming at how quickly we are seeing the new vehicle inventory levels grow within the United States. Dealers cannot sell their vehicles fast enough. At the beginning of 2025 here, we saw over 400,000 more new vehicles available compared to the beginning of 2024. And well, to go one step further, we are seeing 1.4 million more new vehicles available at the beginning of 2025 compared to the beginning of 2023 there. We just have just over 3 million new vehicles available and just over 2.25 million used vehicles. And that's going to continue growing at that compounding rate. We are seeing the highest levels of 30-day, 60-day, and 90-day auto loan delinquencies since the 08-09 recession. The highest levels, and that is only going to get worse as time goes on. So when you combine that with the fact that banks are clamping down, not issuing loans out to people, 1 out of 5 being denied the last couple of quarters here, it really is no surprise that we are heading toward a car market crash. And again, it's just a matter of how you define car market crash. It really is going to be the worst that we've seen in the last 2 decades, that's for sure. So I'll wrap up the video there, guys. As always, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune in these videos. If you find any value in them whatsoever, I do respectfully request that you please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton, and it certainly doesn't go unnoticed. Until next time.